Real conversations with real people that have chosen a life of positive impact in business and community. This is Leave It Better with Brandon Trammell. So, Daniela Santangelo, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on. I've been following a bit of your recent journey after your journey out of the startup that you've been working in with for quite some time, and your focus is something that hits close to home for me. I wasn't raised by a single mom. My parents, were together until I was in high school. But nonetheless, I can't really pinpoint exactly why, but for some reason, I just find single mothers to be the unsung hero, the good ones, the ones who care about their children, who care about their impact on their children, and then their children's impact on the world. I just am so inspired because, man, it takes a village, is such a true adage. Children, I have two of my own. I'm raising two daughters along with my amazing, beautiful wife. And holy shit, if that isn't one of the most daunting tasks I've ever endeavored into in my life. Also the most rewarding. But I'm just inspired by the work that you're doing. So maybe before we kind of launch into professionally what you're up to right now, tell us a little bit about what's brought you here and what's really been guiding you in sort of this phase, this chapter of your life.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So, the last, I would say, year, coming up on a year now, has been this new journey of kind of leading more so in the heart space. And, we all have our experiences of crisis kind of leading to that creativity or that awakening that's very unique to ourselves. But what's really been the guiding light for me is leading with love. And I've done a lot of work kind of getting from that, that third chakra to the fourth, to the heart space chakra. And it's really served me. So being a single mom, I'm still in the thick of it with 4 and 6 year olds. And at the end of the day, like, we can get very micro on parenting styles. And I'm here in Arizona, living at my mom's temporarily, having a lot of co-parenting in this home. And when I moved here, I was like, should I develop a PowerPoint presentation on positive parenting? And I sat down with my family. I said, no, I'm not going to do that. All I'm asking you to do is lead with love as it relates to interacting with the boys. So that's where I'm at. And I feel like that has served me in a way where it's a place to always come back to.
Right.
And when things do feel chaotic externally, tuning back into yourself and what you need, recognizing those feelings, not escaping those feelings, journaling, all of those things. There's been a number of modalities that have helped me to be on the path that I am today.
I think there's sort of a perception of what the culture of the startup space is. I'm curious what your perspective on startup is and how folks can kind of keep themselves under or out of the chaos or the effect of the chaos. And so tell us a little bit about your experience in startup land and kind of how, its effect on you and how you've sort of navigated all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting because now in the year that we're in and all the things that we've endured as a society the last couple of years, very different from when I first started my company back in 2016. So
Right.
I like to call that the era of, what I can say in hindsight now is like this romanticized venture capital world of these big funding rounds and these projections with these exponential growth numbers and that sort of thing. So, looking at a snapshot of what I experienced during that time compared to where we are today has really allowed me to develop frameworks and programming for the early stage founders that I'm working with today that really helps to bridge the gap on what you think it might be and what it really is, not only from a business standpoint, but from a psychological standpoint.
Right.
So, in general, startups are very exciting. Personally, I think much better than the corporate world. And I spent 9 years there seeing how slow and fragmented and archaic the experience was. So startups are exciting. I think the amount that you can accomplish in a short period of time there, but to see the growth is like super inspirational. It's addicting. It truly is addicting. And because you're on that trajectory, it can turn into a place that's very lonely very quickly because you see how difficult it is to relate to others who aren't a founder. Like they just don't get it. They don't get why you left that corporate job making your money and dealing with a $30,000 salary to start. Like what? I don't get it. So it's that zooming
Crazy.
out, right? Like making the sacrifices, knowing that it's for the bigger picture.
Right. Yeah. I've experienced some of that. I mean, I'm not, my company is not a startup. It doesn't involve a lot of the, sort of the moving parts of a startup. We're going through, funding rounds and having a minimum viable product, but that product might not even be actually released to the world yet. It's, pre-revenue stages and all that sort of stuff. Like I've never had to deal with that, but in starting my practice, right. And, coming from, an industry that has a very distinct culture to it that created or that friction was present for me as I was in that container and feeling a pull to step outside of kind of big box finance and, blaze my own path was I couldn't not do that. I couldn't not do it. It had to happen because I felt so closely connected. I have felt so closely connected to serving in a way that feels aligned and right for me, as well as for, the folks that I have the honor to serve. That I can fully understand that, like, they just don't get me kind of perspective, because there aren't a whole lot of people that I've met in my industry that think about things the way that I do, or really want to focus in on the things that I want to focus in on because I feel people calling for it. All right. So I can fully identify with that perspective of, they just don't get me. And it's hard to find folks that, we can sort of align with and share all of our stories with and experiences. So I can fully understand that. So now as you come out of, that sort of startup space, what are you up to now? What are you working on now that's got you so inspired?
Yeah, so it's super exciting times, and I feel like a lot of where I am today has been like from an intuition standpoint that just feels more authentically aligned who I am as a person, and I lost that that part of me for a period of time. So now that it's kind of been reignited, if you will, the natural fit is, to your point, like it is a lonely place. It's hard to find those people. However, you can cultivate a community to, let's get back from out of our homes into spaces where we are connecting, where we're supporting, and where we're growing together. So, I feel like my chapter here in Arizona is one where being integrated into the community, I think there's a dependency on like happiness and productivity. So how can I serve the community for newcomers, new entrepreneurs coming here and wanting to know how to get plugged in? There's been so many great programs and initiatives happening here, but I think there's a great opportunity from a top of the funnel perspective of, hey, these are the attributes of your company and of you as a person. Here's where you should go. And I think there's some elements of my like moving and relocation background too, and wanting to, kind of help newcomers into a new community where it feels really authentically aligned. So I'm, meeting with a number of founders week over week, wanting to help elevate their voices and what they're looking for from a support standpoint and create some vibrancy. Right. At the end of the day, like we are dedicating our entire lives to our startups. Like, let's have fun. Let's have fun while we're doing it. It's okay.
Yeah.
You can like still be happy and still have fun while you're doing it. You don't have to put those things on the back burner, which I was programmed to think that was the only way. So, so it feels really great to be here, and I'm learning a ton, just about the industries and the sectors that are really booming in this area, and what we can do to bridge some of those gaps. That's
so necessary. I mean, it's one of those things that I think a lot of people maybe don't realize is necessary until it's necessary for them, and then of course after that it's like there is no unknowing how necessary that really is, or how critical that was to have that resource, that support, that guidance. So it's amazing that you're able to really kind of bring that to a community, a state that a lot of entrepreneurs are moving to. A lot of businesses and startups are really blooming out there in Arizona. And so having your intention and your perspective, your skills and expertise bring that to bear for other founders there to help them navigate, some bumpy roads, I think is just amazing. So I'm so happy that you're out there doing that.
Thank you.
You're also advising, right, on, tell us about Mama Metaverse, because this was where that single mom kind of thing really came to, my vision or my onto my radar about what you're up to. So tell us about your advisory role there. What's going on with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's funny. Mama Metaverse was a term coined by my great friend Monica in Miami. We were having a Girls Who Crypto brunch out there, and she was like, "You're basically like Mama Metaverse." And I quickly went on GoDaddy and I changed my IG name and I made all of these changes, right? And for me, that was like a healthy outlet as a new single mom dealing with chaos. It's just like, there has to be a better way. Like, what is the future of motherhood? How can we be more connected in the world globally? Because the issues that I'm dealing with as a mom here, sure, very similar to a woman in Dubai and London and all over the world. So I kind of like set this intention, and it was kind of a joke of like the future of motherhood. And then I met another woman in Zurich, Switzerland, after one of my friends said, "Oh, you should look at, motherlandweb3.com." And I was like, "What?" So I look at it, and going in Zurich, the founder and CEO kind of developed this whole program and tokenomics around what the future of motherhood looks like in a more supportive way, where, you know, mothers can have even an opportunity for passive income in the form of crypto, for being able to curate information, because moms are Googling stuff all the time. What if there was a place, a knowledge base for us to be able to capture that information and be able to share it on a global level? So that was last June. So had conversations with her, and ultimately I made a personal decision to step away from that role from a co-founder perspective into more of an advisory role, because I felt like it wasn't serving my highest good to go and spin up another startup right now. Felt too heavy dealing with what I have on my plate right now. So I scaled that back, kind of went more of the solopreneur route. And it's really interesting kind of building in this way in 2023, when you have the availability of AI and systems that will allow you to design something that supports your lifestyle that's very unique to you. And I've been learning from a lot of other solopreneurs on how to, you know, do the systems aspect and really get to a point where it's a well operating machine. I'm very early in that journey, but I'm learning a ton. And I just feel like that is more of the chapter that aligns with where I'm at. So, you know, taking advantage of where I am presently and being in Arizona, knowing that this is a place more than just bachelorette parties and golf outings.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. I had no idea.
So wanted to change the narrative a bit for, like, I think we're the 4th or 5th largest city in the US. But we don't have the density because we're a desert. So it feels a little, you know, fragmented from that perspective, but again, tremendous amount of opportunity.
Nice. Well, and what about helping those entrepreneurs, those startup founders, have you found so much alignment in? What is really driving you into making a positive impact for those folks who are delving into that muddy water of startup land?
You know, it's really just being there. So I'm a lead mentor at Techstars Miami. I'm working with 2 companies currently in their cohort. And, you know, sometimes I get on the phone with these founders and, like, they don't want to talk about business. They just want to talk about some maybe tension between, you know, employees or some like psychological thing they're dealing with. I mean, I had one founder say to me a few weeks ago, she's like, I didn't really have an agenda today, but just hearing your voice, your soothing voice, is helping. Like, that's all she wanted, was just to connect with another like-minded person who gets it, to say what you're doing is enough and it's okay. It's not the end of the world. You're going to figure it out. So it just feels really authentically aligned, because I feel like that's what I would have wanted on my journey, is to kind of have that advisor, that advocate, that cheerleader. And it was hard, you know, doing it on your own and, like, grasping for it and not being able to connect the dots. So my intention when I'm on these calls is just being present. And if it's, hey, let's dive into your go-to-market strategy, or if it's, you know, talking about how to craft a hard conversation with, you know, a team member, whatever it is, I'm there.
Man, the power of that is not lost on me. It is not, because you know, when I was really kind of starting my journey off the beaten path, so to speak, right? Just a couple of years ago, I can't tell you how many times I found myself like, I wish I had somebody that I could ask these questions of, that maybe has experience in doing this, or, you know, just a guiding voice. And I was very fortunate to be able to have found that, right? Which is a huge credit to my guides and advisors, because without them, I wouldn't have been able to continue on the path that I've been on, and that I'm very fortunate to to continue navigating. But it's interesting how there's this, the grind culture of startup and entrepreneurship is one that is, I've found to be so damaging. It really is such a toxic thing, and it purports, right? It holds up that just go, keep going, work through it, and then go home at the end of the day, and you can leave all of that behind. And then when you show up for work the next day, you don't have to bring any of what's going on in your life or your personal sphere into work. Just focus on work. And always just stay the course, keep working no matter what. And that has been, I think, an extremely damaging narrative where, I mean, what you're sharing right here is that a lot of times those founders that you're having conversations with don't want you to advise them on what they're doing in the business. They just need like a port in the storm and they want to talk about the personal things and the feelings and what's going on for them and the frictions and that sort of stuff. That makes absolute sense to me because
humanizing the entrepreneurial journey.
Yes. Oh man, that goes on your business card. I mean, come on. That, that's the thing, right? I think that, maybe some people, don't understand is that there is this culture of sort of dehumanizing business and business endeavor, which has been the problem, I think, right? For so many years, because it takes the humanity out of the thing. It takes the humanity out of the product. It takes the humanity out of the culture, which we're all people. We're human. And there is no dehumanizing a human being. We are always human, no matter what we're doing, whether it's for fun or, professionally, if we're starting a company or a business so I love that you are humanizing business, and giving these folks that you're supporting, an opportunity to, just be human with another human who understands what they're navigating.
Yeah. 100%. I think there's like an element of, sure, you can go down the path of like, go, keep pushing. And, easier said than done, like leaving your work and then go be with your family. It's not sustainable. You will crash and burn. And like, I'm super focused on the preventative measures that we can take as humans to prevent crashing and burning, to preventing getting a divorce, all of these things that like many of us are statistics for. And I want to develop a way to make an impact on changing that narrative.
And how do you think how does that show up? I mean, how in that effort, which I think is, here's our word of the day, is magnanimous. It really is a valiant effort that you're undertaking in doing that. How does your vision, what is your vision around how that shifts and creates positive impact in the world?
Yeah, no, I love that. I believe in the power of community. And I also feel like when you're in your authentic, aligned state and taking those steps and those bold moves and those offers and those programs, you will attract your, what I like to call my soul clients. The programming that I'm developing is not for everyone, but it's for the people who kind of have that, I'm going to say it, the spiritual value of how the journey can look and feel. And if that's important to them, then we will vibe together. And my hope is that with that experience, which is, I'm not doing a lot of the work. It's the person on the receiving end being open to receive the frameworks and the guidance and the practices to unlock the power inside of them, which is meant to ascend into something that is a mission driven, purposeful type of work that they're doing. And my hope is that when that happens with one person, they will inspire others around them, and we will create this cascading effect of people moving from their shadow careers, their shadow existence, into more of a light and purpose-filled mission.
So powerful. And I want to acknowledge a couple of things. There was this moment of that I perceived in you, just in that statement that you made right before you said, dare I say it, spirituality, that I want to touch on, because it's interesting, sort of the perception of what spirituality means and what that is. And I'm often in this conversation, or maybe it's not that I'm in it. Maybe it's that I find myself just starting it. But spirituality, I think by a lot of people's definition, has more to do with religion. And somehow those two, I think, are often conflated. And maybe you can share your definition of spirituality, but in my definition of spirituality has nothing to do per se with religion, or even some, deity or God or entity, right? That is prayed to, or something to that effect. In my definition, spirituality is about our interconnectedness, the interconnectedness of all things that exist, because that is the case. Everything in the universe is inextricably linked. There is an interconnectedness to everything that nature produces. Humans are a part of what nature has produced. And so, I guess for me, spirituality is a state of being where we understand that all things are interconnected, and our actions in one space have a reaction or an effect in other spaces. And that is, I think, a critical understanding that leads us away from this division, the divisiveness that is present in the world right now, and in more acutely and specifically in America. But spirituality is not like, I have to go to a temple or even create an altar, right? Of any kind. It is just in my perspective, an understanding that we're all in this game together. And it sort of changes the operating system a bit for us, doesn't it?
It sure does.
And you said something at the top of the show that I want to acknowledge too. And I think I would love to unpack this a little bit. That you, just to bring more love, to act from a place of love. And I read a book that is called Love is Just Damn Good Business. And when I read that title, I was kind of like, well, it's a little mushy, maybe. Like, is that really the case? But after I read that book, and for some time after, my definition of love, right, as it pertains to that sort of model, or that book and that perspective, is that love is unconditional acceptance. That is the core of love. When we say, I love you, it's meaning I accept you in everything that you are, all, warts and all, as they say, right? And so, yeah, fuck yeah. Love is just damn good business, because it's understanding and accepting people, situations, and circumstances as they are. And that's just damn good business. So maybe, what are your thoughts on that? How does that land for you?
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on. When I look at love, the word grace comes up for me, and grace has been a very good support system and word that I've embodied in a lot of this, because we need to be more gentle with ourselves, especially going through the things that we do. But I think, there was one moment on my journey where I felt this need to like say I'm sorry. To say I'm sorry. Like I felt like I wanted to, like, from the rooftops to my prior employees, to people in my life, I wanted to, like, say I'm sorry. And then I got to a point where I was like, Daniela, you need to forgive yourself. I think that's who needs the biggest apology right now, is yourself. And when I had that moment, it helped me to lead with more grace and knowing that you did the best you could with what you had. We can always be better, but come from a place of gentle kindness and grace. And I believe that, opening up your heart space will attract the right beings, the right projects, the right miracles, all of that stuff.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. I mean, I've experienced that as I became very clear in what my intentions are in business, in my relationships with my wife, with my kids, with my community, and, all the folks that I'm fortunate enough to call friends. That's been my experience. Once I was very solidified in what I was setting out to do and why, it was amazing how all the resources and the people and the experiences that I needed all found me.
Yes. And I think that bolstens the conversation around, like, value systems. And that was a huge takeaway for me in my professional career and in my marriage around, like, if you don't align on the value systems of how you view the world, it's probably not going to be a relationship that works out.
Yeah.
Because you're, what you described, it's a true testament. If you believe it, those things will come in, and instead you're, working with someone who views the world as an ugly, mean place that owes something to them, there will be constant misalignment. And you'll feel like you're fighting for, like, no, it's supposed to be this way. I want to be able to live and lead in this way. But sometimes we surround ourselves with the projects, the people that don't support that. And, for me, I think part of that forgiveness was not listening to myself, not tuning in to what my intuition was telling me, the physiological effects that were starting to appear in my body that I didn't know why. Listen, it's there for a reason. The inner guru exists within, but we're so programmed from the external world. I tell founders all the time, have a one-on-one with your inner guru. Don't forget about them.
They're an important part of the committee, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
I think there are sort of different camps in business, right? Folks that tend to agree with the understandings that you've just laid out, right? And then others who feel it to be, a bit hippy dippy. I tend to I like to sort of straddle that line a little bit, because I find that it allows me to be accepting of folks that are on either side of it. And, we're all just human beings trying to do the best that we can in whatever it is that we're doing. And I feel very connected to kind of both camps in a sense, because I think there's value in not taking anything for granted as factual and a given. It always requires exploration. And I love this beginner's mind concept, right? Where every day we're starting as a beginner and we are curious and open to explore possibilities and understandings and things that we believe to be true, whether or not they actually are in that experience. And so I love this perspective, and I would love for you to speak to founders and give them some encouragement or words of advice that you think are critical to continuing in the mission that they're on.
Yes, great question. I love hearing founder stories. I get the goosebumps every time a founder tells me their story, and I instantly go, founder market fit. You are the one to solve that problem. So my advice would be, on that topic is really own your domain and what you're an expert in, knowing that you are the person to solve that, and operating from that place with your investors, with your employees every day. That you were put in that position. It was divine timing for you to be in that position to solve this problem, and own that. Another piece of advice is from a competitive landscape, we're often comparing ourselves to the founder that had the exit, the competitor that just got funded. Whatever those things are, look at the polarity of, okay, maybe I'm struggling to raise my round right now and I'm seeing others. And knowing that state is impermanent. Mm-hmm. Recognizing the level of impermanence, but also the level of validation, because if that competitor within your industry got funded, more capital is getting infused into your industry, that is validation that you're on the right track. Cool. Bring in the capital. Have them raise the A and the B, and you're going to be right behind them doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. So I remember those days where it's so easy to get derailed. Oh shit, I just saw so-and-so did a pitch. They stole our idea. They, launched this product. It's just like ours. Good. We have something special. Of course they did. Mm-hmm. Right? And so I think it's really standing in your ground as a founder, having the conviction in why you set out to do this, and everything else that's externally happening, recognizing it, but separating yourself from it, because it doesn't define you. It doesn't define you or your business. It is a moment in time. Mm. So I would say those are probably my two biggest takeaways.
And how powerful those are. I mean, always running in the back of my mind is my role as a parent. And it's interesting how the state of being and perspective of children shows up in adults. Here's what I mean. My oldest daughter is 10. My youngest daughter is almost 7. And my oldest daughter is, she's a creative. I mean, she is very artistic and very creative, always doing things that are just unique and interesting in her art and things like this, in her style and, design of her room and all these things. My younger daughter, as is always the case, right? The younger sibling, especially if they're same gender, she looks up to our oldest daughter so much. And my oldest will make something. She'll create something or paint something or whatever. And invariably my youngest daughter is right behind her going, oh, and she's looking over at what she's doing and she starts doing it. And my oldest gets so upset. Like, no, don't, like, I don't like it when you copy me. Like, she gets so upset. And I try to affirm for her, baby girl, she's inspired by what you've done. You've done something super cool. And she's like, wow, I want to do that too. It happens at school for her, right? With other girls and right. And it's amazing how that perspective of like, oh, it's mine. I created it. Don't copy, it bleeds into adulthood. So, right. Because we haven't learned our lesson around that yet, maybe. Right. But it's, I think it happens in business a lot. And there's, I think as we sort of pull that up into the business realm and adult life, it's this scarcity mindset, right? That, well, if they're doing the same thing we're doing, then we're not going to seem as innovative, or we're not going to seem as viable, or, there's competition that spreads things out where we get less, or something to that effect, right?
Creating a sensibility.
Yeah.
But that allows us to have that moment of like, we're going to pivot and persevere is what we're going to do. Mm-hmm. There's new entrants. Ooh, mm-hmm. Our initial product suddenly isn't that interesting anymore. People mm-hmm. are copying. It's time. It's time for us to pivot and persevere. And that's a really critical and interesting time, I think, in startups, of really being down to like, or being able to bunker down as a team and say, ready? We're going to make this hard pivot and we're going to go from a SaaS company to a marketplace. You guys ready? Because we're doing it.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, it's really interesting too. I mean, isn't that really what breeds innovation? Right?
100%. It's healthy competition.
Yeah. Competition is such a necessary thing. I mean, look, I take a lot of cues from nature. I think we're all very smart to take cues from nature. Competition, right, in nature is one of the keystones of advancement and growth. If I'm a fox and you're a fox and we're hunting in the same area, I've got to get really creative to get that meal before you do. And if I'm not, or if I don't, then I don't get that meal. Yeah. And competition, I think, in business is just as critical, because it requires us to stay focused intently on what we're doing, and what we're doing that's working, what we're doing that's not working, what we aren't doing that could work. And those things are so critical for the betterment of our company. And I think the best companies and the most successful entrepreneurs among us understand this, that critics and competition are one of the most important aspects and informative stakeholders of our companies and our products, because they tell us what we're not doing well, or they show us what we could do better. And they pay attention to that.
Yes.
So I think, man, I take lots of lessons in business from parenting, which is maybe why this, the Motherland Web 3, I think, with that idea and that project was so interesting to me, because it connects these things, right? And for me, that's an understanding that I've come to is, man, how many lessons do I take from my kids and my role as a dad into, my role as an entrepreneur and a business owner? It's amazing how much I learn about business from being a parent. So I love that.
Yeah, I think filling your cup before anyone else's is an important one that I think rings true every day in business and personal, because it is so true. When we show up for ourselves, we can better show up for everyone else. And I'm super grateful that 6 years of running a startup and having two babies, there's a lot of layers upon layers of lessons that I now feel like I'm getting out of my mommy haze to be able to put some of those, actions into motion and be able to serve and help others. So,
and I think there is there's such a need for that. I mean, for a guide, for a sounding board, for specifically, and I think especially for professional mothers, for entrepreneurial moms, because, man, that is hands down the hardest job that exists on this planet, is being a mom. I'm not a mom, and so I can't even fully fathom the extent or the importance and the stress and pressure of that, or the reward, right? The other side of that coin, because I'm not one, but I happen to be married to one, and I happen to know a few. And I gather that is just the hardest fucking job there is. And to couple on top of that, being an entrepreneur, a founder, or a CEO, or a business leader in our culture, along with being a mom, I mean, talk about the most, it's got to be one of the most difficult journeys around. So having someone like you to be a sounding board and to be like, hey, been there. I know how that's going. I can tell you how I felt when I was in that situation, and supporting that it's just so powerful and so critical. I'm glad that you have found that space.
Thank you. I mean, we can only go up from here, and I don't think we have enough time to talk about, the issue of the 4% of capital that's going to female founders and the massive opportunity that we have. And I think at the end of the day, as moms, as entrepreneurs, we're allowed and capable of having both. And I'd love to see more women step into their power to know that that is possible, so that we could make an impact in moving the needle around the amount of capital that is being deployed to female founders and their soul-filled missions. So that's a whole nother topic and a whole nother initiative that absolutely that will be launched. But it's a very unique opportunity to wear those hats. And I just think we collectively could be doing so much more in the world if we can get more women to really rise to their power.
And I can speak to this one personally. I think our job as men, as husbands, as fathers, is really, really important, that we embrace and support our women, our mompreneurs, right? That really have so much value to add and so much value to bring in business, in leadership, in roles of leadership outside the home, that it's our responsibility to support you and give you the grace in the room to be able to pursue those things too, right? To start that acceptance of, being a support mechanism for our wives, our sisters, our girlfriends, our friends, to do those things, to get out and to lean into that power, to embody that power and that value that you bring, because it is so absolutely necessary. the balance, right, in nature of kind of masculine and feminine energy and traits, is so extremely important. That yin yang, right? So
we can learn so much from each other, and
100%.
More male allies like you, Brandon.
Well, you have things that you're really, really good at, and I'm not. And I say like men, we're bad at certain things, and you're really good at those things, and vice versa. We're really good at some things that, women aren't. And that's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
That's necessary because of that interdependence that I was, talking about earlier. And, we really just have an opportunity to lean in and support each other and be successful business people together, be business leaders together, and be there to support each other, whether or not we're married, whether or not we're in, a relationship of a romantic nature. It's our responsibility to be there to prop each other up and support each other in the ebb and flow. So
yes,
I'm just so happy that you've found your path, that you're really leaning into that intuitive nature of what's being presented to you and supporting founders. And I imagine, in a large degree are female founders, maybe not all of them, certainly, but being there to be able to support and prop up and guide those founders who are endeavoring into a larger mission and a sense of purpose in the business that they are growing, running, and bringing to the world. I appreciate you for all that you're doing in that space. And thank you so much for coming on the show, because I love the broad array of folks that I get to sit down and have conversations with, because they're all so important in their own respect and in their own right, and bringing value in their own way. So thank you for all that you're doing out there. Please keep it up. And I am certainly staying tuned.
Thanks so much, Brandon. Appreciate the opportunity.
Okay. See you next time, everybody.
See ya.
If you like what you've heard, make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. For even more inspiration, head over to our YouTube channel, Leave It Better with Brandon Trammell, and subscribe to watch videos from podcast episodes, gain insights around getting right with your money, and achieving contentment in a crazy world. And remember, wherever you go, whoever you're with, whatever you do, always aim to leave it better than you found it. Thank you.
Thank you.
What a nice conversation.
Yep.